In the grand kingdom of Alderwin, the royal court was never quiet. Ministers argued, generals boasted, advisors competed to be heard, and in the center of it all sat Princess Elowen, silent, watching. They thought she was too quiet to rule. While the court buzzed with noise, Elowen listened. While others rushed to speak, she observed. And while the kingdom prepared for change, no one noticed that she was already preparing too. At the king's right hand stood Lord Mulrick, charming, confident, always smiling. He spoke loudly and carried certainty in every word. The ministers admired him. The generals trusted him. Even the king relied on him. And when Mulrick suggested new policies, new taxes, new guards for the castle gates, no one questioned him except Elowen. But she did not argue, she did not interrupt, she did not accuse, she simply watched. In the marketplace, whispers had begun. Merchants complained of unfair trade restrictions, farmers spoke of missing shipments, guards changed shifts at unusual hours. Yet in the court, Mulrick spoke of prosperity, he spoke of protection, he spoke of loyalty, and everyone applauded. Everyone except the princess. She is too gentle, one minister whispered. She lacks fire, said another. She will never command respect. Elowen heard them all, and said nothing. Days passed. Then, one morning, Mulrick proposed something bold. A neighboring kingdom, he claimed, was preparing to attack. He urged the king to send half the royal guard to the northern border. It is the only way to protect Alderwin, he declared. The court erupted in agreement. The king hesitated, and all eyes turned briefly to Princess Elowen. She lowered her gaze, still silent. The king approved the order. Half the guard marched north, and that night something changed. Castle gates were left with fewer soldiers. Treasury vaults were guarded by unfamiliar faces, and Malric stayed unusually late in the council chambers. Elowen noticed. She had noticed for weeks the altered guard schedules, the missing supply logs, the forged signatures hidden within official scrolls. She had not been silent because she was unsure. She had been silent because she was collecting proof. In the quiet of her chambers, she studied records. She compared handwriting. She memorized dates. She mapped patterns. Malric believed she was naive. He believed she was timid. He believed she was invisible. He was wrong. 3 nights after the guards marched north, the trap was set. At midnight, masked men slipped through the eastern gate. The reduced guards were quickly overwhelmed. Treasury doors were forced open, and inside the castle, chaos began to spread. But before panic could reach the king's chamber, a bell rang. Not the alarm bell, the council bell, summoning every minister to the royal hall. Mulric arrived first, feigning shock, feigning confusion. "What treachery is this?" he demanded. The king entered, furious. Reports of intrusion echoed through the chamber. Mulric stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said smoothly, "this proves I was right. Our enemies have begun their assault." The ministers nodded in fear. Then the great doors opened once more. Princess Elowen entered, not hurried, not afraid, calm. In her hands were scrolls bound in silver thread. She walked to the center of the hall, and for the first time that season she spoke before anyone else. "Father," she said gently, "before we accuse another kingdom, we must look within our own walls." The hall fell silent. Malric's smile faltered. Elowen unrolled the first scroll. "Guard rotations altered 3 weeks ago. Approved under Lord Malric's seal." Another scroll. "Supply shipments redirected through private routes." Another. "Signatures forged to move treasury assets before tonight's breach." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Malric stepped back. "These are misunderstandings," he protested. Elowen did not raise her voice. She did not argue. She simply raised one final document. "A letter," she said softly, "sent to hired mercenaries. payment promised upon successful distraction at the northern border. The king's face hardened. The ministers turned slowly toward Malric. For weeks he had spoken the loudest, and now he had nothing to say. Guards seized him. The masked intruders were captured, and the truth unfolded completely. There had never been a foreign threat, only ambition, only greed, only a man who believed volume was power. As dawn broke over Alderwyn, the court gathered once more. But this time it was quiet. The king rose from his throne. He looked at his daughter. "You saw what none of us did," he said. Elowen shook her head gently. "I listened," she replied. "The ministers who once doubted her avoided her gaze. The generals who once dismissed her now stood straighter. Respect had not been demanded. It had been earned." In the days that followed, Elowen began attending council not as a silent observer, but as a trusted voice. Yet she never became loud. She never interrupted. She never boasted. When others rushed, she paused. When others accused, she questioned. And when others tried to overpower, she outthought them. The kingdom changed. Not because of force, not because of fear, but because of wisdom. Years later, when Elowen became queen, the people did not remember her as the loudest ruler. They remembered her as the one who prevented a war without lifting a sword, the one who protected the treasury without shouting a command, the one who defeated betrayal with patience. And in every corner of Alderwyn, a quiet truth was told to young children learning about courage. She never needed to be loud. She only needed to be right.